Hey, welcome everyone to E2 Connect, where we connect with other leaders who are a part of E2's ministry. And today we focus on the topic of leadership.
Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey everybody, welcome back to E2 Connect. We're grateful to CDF Capital for their continuing generosity and support that enables us to invest in elders through this platform and many others. Today, we welcome a young minister from the Portland, Oregon area. This is Darin Frey, and Darin is a new partner church with E2. Darin, welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Gary. Thanks for asking for me to be on here.
I'm grateful, and it looks like your wife Becky is endorsing this interview right now. Are you on Becky's Zoom account?
I'm on Becky's. Yeah, it's one of those where we tried this the other day and it didn't work on mine. And I'm not the greatest at tech, so anyway, we're using Becky's, and so thank you, honey, for letting me use your account.
Yeah, all is good. Hey, we're at E2, we are very grateful to Singing Hills Christian Church in Hillsboro, Oregon, just outside of Portland. You are one of our newer partner churches. And can you tell me a little bit about how that might have happened, your path crossing with ours, and then also tell us a little bit about yourself and your ministry there at Singing Hills.
Yeah, so basically, I think our first real formal introduction to E2 was when you and I think one of the other guys, I can't remember.
David. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys came out to the Turner Oregon Christian Convention and basically did a great job speaking through leadership and change and hitting on several topics that we were going through at the time and are still going through. We refer to those notes often, and so basically that was our glimpse of, oh man, that would be so helpful to have E2. But that was probably a year and a half ago, pre-pandemic. And so basically we've been going through really trying to address both COVID challenges and new ministry. How do we continue to transition our church through these things? And I'll be honest, actually, the first thought that really got me thinking about having a coach was by the podcast Unstuck, Tony Morgan. You've heard of them. They do a really great podcast. In fact, through the pandemic, they've done a really good job keeping things timely. And I'd actually been reaching out to them, just getting other insight and considering possibly maybe we'd partner with them. But after really praying about that and talking to our elders, and then finding out E2 does this, I said, guys, what if we had E2 come? And I'll just, you didn't ask me to put in this plug for you, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. For anyone, any church considering E2 as a partner, the genuine touch and humility, Gary, that you brought in your presentation and then interactions now has really helped our guys feel very comfortable and building that trust and that rapport. And we both felt that you would get our church and that our church would get you. And so not knocking any other church partnership group, but we just felt like there was a real connection there. And so that was one of the big reasons why we went with E2. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for that endorsement. We're grateful for that as well.
Sure.
Now, you're born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, correct?
Yeah. Born and raised, went to high school, community college, wrestled at the community college, and got my Associate of Arts Oregon transfer, and then basically started working after that.
Got it. And where did you meet Becky, and how did you get into ministry?
Oh man, that's such a long journey that I'll keep very short. Basically, there was a season of soul searching in that season of working. I had graduated and just started, getting a good job. Had been laid off of that job, and the things that I thought were really filling my life, found out were not. And so God got a hold of my heart, and in 2009, I decided to move to Moberly, Missouri, to Central Christian College of the Bible. And big shout out to David Fincher there. And anyway, I had no intention of joining ministry. In fact, I was eager to kind of go and find answers to my questions and search, but really had no intention of any ministry. I was wanting to do something meaningful with my life, and I
Hmm.
thought meaningful meant making money and being in business. And Bible college was kind of a quick, stop in that
Hmm.
journey. And but God had His way, as He often does.
Hmm.
Met my wife
Yes.
there. Began through those connections at Moberly. Began my first ministry in Milan, Missouri,
Mm.
and from that snowballed into foster care,
Hmm.
and foster care snowballed into adoption.
Hmm.
And actually, just it's funny we're doing this today is our Gotcha Day. We actually
Ah,
celebrate 4 years of adoption with our oldest three boys, and
wow. You adopted three boys?
three boys, yeah, three biological
Wow.
siblings. So yeah.
Uh-huh. Incredible. So then how did you and Becky get back to Oregon?
Yeah, so after about 6 years of ministry, we basically were feeling the call to transition, and it
Hmm.
was a hard season. A lot of searching and questioning and things, but we felt like it was the right thing to do, and we actually formalized the adoption after we moved to Oregon,
Hmm.
and yeah, since then we've had three other boys, and so we have six total, and it's been quite the journey. So
Six boys in your family. That's incredible. And
it's
now, how long have you been at Singing Hills?
yeah. So we in July was 4 years.
Okay. So then it looks like you've been in ministry for 10 years.
Yeah.
And why don't we let's explore one of our six challenges facing elders. And
Sure.
for those who listen each week or watch every week, we are devoting all of 2021 to these six challenges of elders, ELDERS. And that letter L stands for leadership. In speaking with you, you had said that that resonates as you pray and you think about what's going on in life, in your ministry path right now after 10 years, that leadership component is a challenge. So,
Yeah.
what can you talk a little bit about that and unpack why and how do you find leadership a challenge right now?
Well, one of the aspects, as we were discussing, the leadership topic, I've really felt compelled regarding accountability in
Mm.
leadership,
Hmm.
and both from my own personal experience and then other church situations where people are either leaving the ministry because of they're caught in sin, to
Hmm.
just being burnt out and not keeping themselves healthy, and
Hmm.
so that's certainly an area that in leadership. I mean, leadership is
Yeah.
such a broad idea,
Hmm.
but accountability, personal accountability, and those kinds of things I've found to be just super important and
Hmm.
helpful. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Do you think people like hearing about accountability?
Well, actually, I need to apologize for bringing this up anyway, because as soon as people hear the A word,
Uh-huh.
boy, they will run for
Hmm.
the hills.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be held accountable, and
Uh-huh.
so I do apologize if this has the least views in your podcast. Probably
Uh-huh.
everyone will just turn it off at this point.
Yeah, well, we at E2, we talk about the good side of accountability. And, I think that you had said before that there's an old hymn that speaks into your life in this regard. Didn't you mention that to me
Yeah,
before?
yeah. So basically, one of the areas for me was this real personal reality that even though I didn't want accountability, it was more of a need. I need accountability,
Hmm.
and especially when you're at the top, not very many people are willing to really hold you to the
Hmm.
grindstone. And
Hmm.
so, just identifying that need, and I was reflecting on the great hymn "Come Thou Fount," and
Hmm.
by Robert Robinson. And in the last portion of that third chorus, prone to wander, Lord, I
Yeah.
feel it.
Hmm.
Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord. Take and seal it for thy courts above.
Hmm.
And really, this has hit me on a personal level with understanding my role, my God
Hmm.
given role as a husband, as a father, and as a minister.
Hmm.
Those three, and my fallen state as a human being, I am
Hmm.
prone to wander, and I am
Yeah.
prone to leave the God I love.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
accountability really just shores up the ability to run from that temptation, or
Hmm.
run to God's word when I'm wanting to
Hmm.
wander.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, unpack a little bit for us, if you would, Darin. How have you found accountability to be effective in your leadership of the bride there at Singing Hills?
Well, I got to say, we don't just lead other people as leaders. We don't just lead the church or lead the staff, or, in the eldership. But we, first and foremost, I think, lead ourselves. If you ever point the finger, how many are pointing back at you?
Right.
There's a lot more that point back at you, and I think that we got to start there. Before we can really branch out and be effective in leading others. And so, yeah, it starts with us. And I think one of the ways I kind of look at it is in the word accountability, there's really two words in one word. The first part there is account, and the second one being ability, accountability. And if you think about it from a banking term, if your account in your bank account, well, your ability or skill level to manage that account is what you're going to be held accountable for, right? And so in the context of that, your ability to manage that account is determined, and your bank will hold you accountable to that. If you have a deficit, they will make sure that you get that back. Your bills, they hold you accountable to making sure that you can manage the account well. And I think as church leaders and elders, our account that we've been given is the church. And I think the ability to lead her well is really what we're going to be held accountable to do. And I see James 3 is a huge, just real highlight for us, and anyone who's really teaching and preaching. He brings that out, that we're going to be judged more strictly. And I don't say that to kind of get you, but I think it's something that we really got to be mindful of.
Yeah, we oftentimes at E2 remind elders, and I'm an elder here at the Creek, and that reminder is of what Paul the Apostle said to the church in Corinth. And he said in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2, he says, "Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful." So as elders, we have been given the trust of leading the local church, the bride, and we have to prove faithful to the Lord in that regard. And, you have been given the trust of leading Singing Hills Christian Church, and you have to prove faithful. So James chapter 3, verse 1, there is that deeper sense of accountability, and it's a recurring refrain through the Word of God, undeniably. What are ways then that you have found effective to lead yourself? When you mention leading self, we talk about self-leadership at E2. And so what are ways that you have found possible and helpful and effective for that?
Yeah, so, of course, being a preacher, you got to have 3 points. And so I'll do the best I can to keep it to that. 3 things. I don't know. The first one being probably the first and foremost, we have to know ourselves. This has been a journey for me just to know myself better for the purpose. The end goal isn't just to know my strengths and think how wonderful I am, but if I know myself, then I can truly lead myself better. A few of those personality tests, some really ones, Myers-Briggs, they're 16 personalities test. That's a very simple, easy one. It's a great starter. Taylor-Johnson temperament test. When Beth and I were getting married, we had our counselor go through that with us, and wow, that had some blaring things to reveal about me. And anyway, that's for another time, another story. But that's a great test to go through our temperaments. How do we deal with stress and things? Another one is the DISC profile test, and we have all of our elders and staff and key lay leaders do this. It's $50, but it's worth it because it does a deep dive into who we are as a person, how we're wired, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses that we should be held accountable for. But when we understand those, then we know where the traps lie. One of the biggest things. I'll give you an example about myself. I'm an ENTP on the Myers-Briggs, and so there's some great strengths with that, but I got to say there's a lot of backsided weaknesses. One being that I can be way too pushy. I set unrealistic expectations, and I have a tendency to just place those unreasonable expectations on everybody else around me. not a great characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially as a type A person,
Mm-hmm.
man, my patience can be short. And so,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
really internally understanding, how am I feeling?
Mm-hmm.
How am I thinking? And then really being able to then just not
Mm-hmm.
push that on everybody else,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before you go on to those other two, just for those who are listening and or watching, uh, can you tell us that $50 fee for the DISC assessment? Is that online? Is it per person? Is it for the entire church leadership team? $50? Do you
yeah,
remember?
per person. So basically, you can create the I could send you the link. We could add it to
Mm-hmm.
the video. But basically, it's all online. You click the link, pay the
Mm-hmm.
$50, and the gal that does it gives churches a discount. That's why it's so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
She does this with Fortune 500 companies at hundreds of dollars each.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For the churches, she has a heart for the ministry. In fact, it was through Bob
Mm-hmm.
Russell Ministry. In fact, it was the first time that I had a chance to take it and was
Mm-hmm.
introduced to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, but per person, $50 per person,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just go through it. It takes
Cool.
about 15, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Got it. Okay. And again, for those who are listening and or watching, another self-assessment personality tool would be the Enneagram. Many people are doing Enneagram
yeah.
right now. All right. So go on. Tell us more about ways that you have found to lead yourself. You said you had 3 that you wanted
Yeah,
to share.
yeah. Well, and one of the other ways that, or what I was going to mention as far as knowing myself is knowing, because I do need that interpersonal accountability.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've done is meeting with an elder once a week,
Oh,
and
good. Mm-hmm.
that's been probably one of the best things that I've implemented in this journey because
Mm-hmm.
basically it's very simple. We catch up on life,
Mm-hmm.
but we're very intentional to ask the question, how are you doing? How
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm-hmm.
you doing? Not just how's life? How are you? Oh yeah, it's great, it's fine. We don't keep
Mm-hmm.
it superficial. We go deep. We talk about temptations. We talk about the challenges that we're
Mm-hmm.
facing, the frustrations that we're
Mm-hmm.
feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Just whether it be home life, church life, whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been really effective. And we also go through like one book, one chapter a week, just to
Mm-hmm.
keep ourselves, again, sharpening. Jerry Bridges has a couple of really good books we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
The Pursuit of Holiness and The
Mm-hmm.
Practice of Godliness. I would
Yeah.
highly recommend those two,
Mm-hmm.
just challenging books,
Mm-hmm.
but helpful books. We need those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of books to really
Mm-hmm.
keep us headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that's one of the things. But outside of that, just the Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey could be great. Those are
Mm-hmm.
leadership
Mm-hmm.
books,
Yeah. That.
podcasts, those kinds of things. So the second thing would be is time management.
Mm-hmm.
So time is the most unrenewable resource we
Yeah.
will ever
Mm-hmm.
have.
Mm-hmm.
We never get a second back. In fact, those of
Mm-hmm.
you watching this video right now, you will never get this time back. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that it's helpful for you. I want to make it
Mm-hmm.
valuable for you.
Mm-hmm.
But and as a side note, the only way that we can multiply our time is if we are intentional about discipling. That's a whole
Mm-hmm.
other conversation, but that is the
Mm-hmm.
only way that we can multiply our time and multiply that impact. So,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's for another discussion, Gary. But
Mm-hmm.
time is so important. We got to use our time well. And I would just encourage, especially, I'm a millennial. I'm 35 years
Mm-hmm.
old, and I know this is only real true with Gen Z and
Mm-hmm.
younger. Is we got to turn off our Facebook and our Twitter and the news feeds that constantly
Mm-hmm.
ding on our cell phones and
Mm-hmm.
interrupt our lives because we are not being
Mm-hmm.
efficient with our time. We
Mm-hmm.
just aren't. If we're honest with
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, I think we
Yeah.
could agree with
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. And what I would add before you do that third and final point is lost time is never found again.
Yeah.
So time being that most costly, non-renewable commodity, we have to manage time because lost time is never found. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Right. Well, and we're not the only ones that suffer with that, like the
Mm-hmm.
cramming the Friday and Saturdays to finish up
Oh,
the
yeah.
sermon.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
reports are due every week. We don't get
Mm-hmm.
away from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the biggest thing that caught my attention with that is my wife and my family suffer the most
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I prioritize the work. The work has to
Mm-hmm.
be done.
Yeah.
We can do date
Mm-hmm.
night another night. We can do
Mm-hmm.
family night another night. But this
Mm-hmm.
sermon is due on Sunday, and I
Mm-hmm.
need to get that ready. And so that was a big turning point for me in realizing I need to prioritize my time. My prep time needs to be prep time. My family time needs to be family time. And for me, that's the big change has been getting up earlier. My day starts, instead of getting up at 7, I get up at 5, and we
Wow.
just start the day early and we go.
Mm-hmm.
So number 3, embrace the suck. All right, now I realize that kind of sounds like a course term. Let me explain. That's actually a military term. When you're going through boot camp, they will tell you embrace the suck. Basically, understand the trial that's in front of you, understand the hard reality that's in front of you,
Yep.
and don't quit. Right,
Mm-hmm.
push through that
Mm-hmm.
and work on it. The other day, I was out on a jog in the stroller. One of the ways that I help my wife Becky is I give her some time to do homeschool with our 8-year-old, and basically I take the younger on a jog. It's great resistance training. If you're jogging with a stroller, man, it's a good workout, especially if you get some hills. Well,
Yeah.
this particular day I was doing a 5-miler. That's what I had in my head. I was ready for that, but I was going a new route, and I hadn't done a good job of mapping out the route. I ended up going 1.5 miles further. And I was telling myself, Darin, embrace the sun. It was a
Yeah.
hot day. It was
Uh-huh.
miserable. And I remember just being in a really foul mood after that because I was just, I just had to like push through it.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think ministry, there
Uh-huh.
are those moments when we plan on doing a 5-miler and we realize we had to go an extra 1.5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Hot, miserable day. And, I think embracing those hard trials is something that we have to be a bit more comfortable with and doing. The Apostle Paul is a great example
Yeah.
of, embracing the suck.
Mm-hmm.
I think about, as he details out for us in 2 Corinthians 11,
Mm-hmm.
basically he goes on a list, on a rant, if you will,
Yeah.
about all the trials and the hardships that he's endured.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through that list, I asked the question to myself, what if Paul would have quit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where would the church be
Mm-hmm.
today if the Apostle Paul decided to just stop doing ministry after his
Mm-hmm.
first time being whipped by the cat of nine
Mm-hmm.
tails?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or being shipwrecked, or being in
Mm-hmm.
jail, or maybe more personally for us in ministry is
Mm-hmm.
being backstabbed by
Mm-hmm.
people who thought we're believers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is so damaging
Mm-hmm.
to us. And
Mm-hmm.
so embracing the suck in
Mm-hmm.
ministry is
Mm-hmm.
certainly a reality. And I got to
Mm-hmm.
say, anyone listening, COVID is a
Mm-hmm.
season that's been sucking for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
Right. Mm-hmm.
it has been terribly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think here in Oregon on the West Coast, we still have mask mandates. We still
Mm-hmm.
have fear mongering in the news. We have weekly emails and updates from the high schools of saying how many cases there are, and
Mm-hmm.
all of the information that's being hit by us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just encourage us to really, really be mindful of where we
Mm-hmm.
are in
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
and be ready for those
Yeah.
challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I have two things just to mention, and I'm not sure where we are in our time.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, when I go on a run, there's two things that I check. I check my heart rate, and I
Mm-hmm.
check for pain. Heart rate and pain. My heart rate has to be at a 130 to 140. If it goes to
Mm-hmm.
180, I better slow down because I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to burn out quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But also pain. God gave us the ability to experience pain for a reason, and we have
Right.
to understand what that pain's about. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in running, if it's a sharp pain, you better stop and check that pain, stretch,
Mm-hmm.
do what you got to do a better warm up, ice it. If it's
Mm-hmm.
a dull, kind of ongoing pain, that's something that if you're putting in miles, your body's going to have some pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's part
Mm-hmm.
of the process, it's part of the journey.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I would just encourage us to ask ourselves some questions that kind of hit at that. And the first question would be is how are you doing? As a minister, as an elder, as a church lay leader, how are you doing? We're called to love the Lord your God with all of our
Heart,
heart,
mind, soul, and strength.
mind, and strength. And if we are not healthy, then
Mm-hmm.
we cannot do that.
Right.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
how are you doing in that way? How is COVID hitting you particularly? Have
Mm-hmm.
you kind of stopped and paused your life and asked that question, how are you doing? And what do you need to do to create some rest, to
Mm-hmm.
create some space in that? Another question to ask is, how is your marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe you think it's great. Let's ask a different question. How
Uh-huh.
is your spouse?
Uh-huh.
Have you asked her or him
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
lately? Have you done a check-in date? And
Mm-hmm.
just be able to ask, how are you doing? That's
Mm-hmm.
something that Becky and I try to be really intentional about. I know if she'll probably watch this later, and she'll probably say, Darin, you haven't asked me for a while. So I probably do. Certainly. But we do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we have kids, how are your kids doing?
Mm-hmm.
I just started doing this a few weeks ago. In fact, I was really convicted about this, is I have not done a good job of asking my kids how I can pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an area that I've been trying to grow. As they're into public school, they're getting hit with all kinds
Mm-hmm.
of teaching I don't particularly agree with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? And
Yeah.
we've had some really good 5-10 minute discussions about just kind of peeling back that onion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason I bring these questions up is because your home life is indeed your heartbeat,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to check that, and you got to check where the pains are. Are they sharp pains? Are they dull pains
Right.
we need to work through?
Mm-hmm.
And by checking that, I think interpersonally you're going to be able to grow and feel that. So
Yeah. No.
that's my 3 for you.
Yeah, no, that's all very good. You've helped us understand the need to persevere. When you bring up Paul, as you were giving those examples from his second letter to the church in Corinth, I got to thinking about Hebrews chapter 12, when in the opening verses, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders, the sin that so easily entangles, and run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Whoever wrote that book goes on to say, consider him, meaning Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So we want to endure. We want to be resilient in the strength of the Holy Spirit. So that's all good stuff, buddy. I'm grateful that you landed on the topic of L, leadership, and that you took that letter A for accountability to zero in, to dig deeper into leadership. Because if we cannot lead ourselves, how can we lead the church?
Right.
We can't lead ourselves. How can we lead the church? All right, well, we're past our 20-minute mark, and so we're going to call it a conversation that's good and strong. And Darin, thank you for what you're doing there in Portland. You could have left long ago to go to a much easier place, but God has you and Becky there and those 6 boys and an elder team for such a time as this, and we're grateful. Looking forward to being with you guys.
It's just coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're going to be out there by God's grace. Well, blessings to you. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary. God bless you.